So with Rafalko, it's pretty similar to Lexi in that carrying the bit, using any pressure on the reins other than isolating the left and right rein, always triggered a curling of the neck, getting behind the bit, or him looking for me to hold him up through the reins. So while we're still working on Rafalko, basically maintaining engagement on a big circle. We had to use small circles to build up his capacity for engagement. Like, he was so unstable through the pelvis and the low back that we did a lot of work on small circles until he could really start to control his speed, start to control his body weight from falling forward. And then we shifted to these bigger circles, especially as we're preparing for trot and canter work. And so while he's figuring out how to be stable or keep the engagement without the little circle on a bigger, straighter path of travel, I also started playing with rein contact. So the same principle I described in Lexi's video, what I'm doing is adjusting the rein length to keep a very light feel. So like Lexi, who over curls her neck, and you can see even with very light rein pressure, Rafalko loves to drop the pole, curl the neck, shorten those neck muscles in order to stabilize whenever he's struggling with too much unbalanced forces through the torso. So I feel that through my seat, through my legs, when his weight is not under his control and it's sort of shifting all over the place, he likes to curl his neck and hold there for stability. So while we're playing with his balance on a straighter path of travel, which is more challenging for him, and going to trot, which used to make him lame, I just sort of took these, like, it's something we've been working on for weeks. So during that time, I've taken the opportunity to just develop a rein contact with Rafalko again, which, again, my definition is touching without resistance, touching without restriction. So where he needs a little bit of help keeping the neck straight during the turn, because he was so overbent on circles that it locked up his legs and his shoulders. And that was part of why he had the lameness issues he did. So learning to reach with the legs while he keeps the neck straight is a big change in coordination for him. So I still have to help him a little bit with the left to right rein to stabilize the neck straight as we come through the turns, even big, easy turns like this. And I'm trying to keep the same feel on both reins, which is not an aid, but a contact, when he can keep his neck straight himself, left to right. So if I need a little bit of rein pressure to turn, or I need a little bit of rein pressure to keep the neck straight, I'm just sort of closing my fingers on one hand, but keeping my fingers pretty loose in order to keep a very light but consistent feel. So just to repeat what I did on Lexi, if I say 10 is very heavy and 1 is very slack, then the rein contact I'm trying to establish is about a 3, like Lexi. So something very light, but very consistently the same. And the way we can keep the same feel, the only way we can keep the same feel on the reins, no matter how the horse uses the neck, is by adjusting the rein length. So I constantly shorten or lengthen the rein length to keep the same 3 feel on both reins. I know when he's getting crooked or bending because one rein will go 3, 4, 5, while the other rein goes 3, 2, 1, 0. So if I just close my fingers on the heavier rein, I resist the bending through the neck. At the same time, I'm going to feel upward pressure through one seat bone more than the other. So that kind of confirms that the spine is not only bending in the neck, but all the way through the thoracolumbar side of the spine, which is going to affect the levelness and stability of the pelvis. So keeping the neck straight kind of helps stabilize the spine nose to tail. But the lengthening of the neck has to do with the stability coming through the pelvis and the spine. So as the spine and pelvis stabilize, the neck always has the impulse to lengthen. So if I restrict that lengthening, I restrict the stability or inhibit the stability of the spine and the pelvis. If I just keep a consistent feel, a 3, I'm not inhibiting anything or restricting anything. I'm just touching. And contact just means touch. A Rein aid would include some form of resistance or restriction. So if I don't want him to bend the neck, I close my fingers on the left rein and I resist him bending the neck right. But if I resist him lengthening the neck or lowering the head and neck, then I'm actually creating I'm reducing the stability of the spine and pelvis farther back. So that's why I don't believe in using or framing the neck or having a consistent rein length before the horse is ready. The consistency of rein length to me is really the result of the horse figuring out how to control their body left to right and front to back. So when the left, right, and front back balance is organized and stable, the neck is long and they elevate their own head and neck so that the pole comes in line with the back or higher. So I don't use the reins to resist the neck going longer or downward, and I also don't use the reins to lift the neck up or bring the pole up or any such thing. I go, that's just giving me, if I let the neck be free for the horse to use like an appendage for balance, then the neck sort of shows me what's going on with the coordination and the weight distribution. So if I keep the same feel on the reins, then I get even more detail. So before I can visually see the neck bend, I can feel the horse increase the pressure on one rein and at the same time decrease the pressure on the opposite rein. I feel the bend coming or the twist before I see the neck actually bend left or right. So that really improves the timing of what we can do with the reins, right? It improves our feel and our timing for helping the horse stabilize the spine, stabilize the pelvis. But if he wants to lower the neck, what that also tells me, and he lowers the neck a bit, but he keeps that little bit of curl through his neck, right? So he doesn't ever really root on the reins and pull them through my hands. He tends to get behind any rein pressure or any rein contact and just over curl the neck as a way to get relief in the mouth. So when he starts to pull the reins through my fingers, that's how I know his spine and pelvis are feeling more stable to him. That muscle lengthening is a spontaneous, dynamic result of the spine and pelvic bones becoming more stable. When the spine and pelvic bones are less stable, the muscles shorten in order to, keep the body from falling over. So the rein contact tells me the little tiny changes in the stability or instability of the spine and pelvis. And when the neck lengthens and goes down into the posture of long and low, what that tells me is the horse is stable through the spine and pelvis, but doesn't have enough muscular strength to resist the body weight from overloading the front legs. So horses carry their weight through the back and hindquarters, just like we do. I think over 50% of body weight in humans, I think it's like 54 or 56% of our body weight is carried in our torso. So our legs are lighter by comparison. Our head has a good chunk of that. But just the torso weight is the largest percentage of body weight. in horses, or where it should be carried in horses and people. So when horses can't resist body weight from falling forward, which is related to their front back balance, then the neck lengthens and they fall into the posture of long and low. But when they have the strength, they elevate their own neck. They keep the neck long. That's more related to left-right balance, whether it's long or short. But if it's long and low, then they haven't figured out how to shift weight up and back into the torso. So it's falling forward onto the forehand. So when he starts to lengthen his neck, I know we're making progress regarding the stability of the spine and pelvis. When he starts to elevate his long neck, I know he's lifting his back and engaging the pelvis, right? That's how I know. And when I have a consistent contact on the reins, if I lengthen and shorten the reins in order to keep my 3 feel very consistent, then I feel the tiniest changes. In other words, I feel the difference between a 3 and a 4 or a 3 and a 2, right? I feel the instant 0 in both reins when he curls the neck and I have to shorten them just to regain the 3 feel. I feel when he's lengthening the neck, he might increase both reins to a 4. Tells me he's gaining axial stability. So the reins tell us a lot, but only if we're receiving the information through our delicate little sensitive hands and not using our hands like monkey paws to grip the reins and try to control any movement or any freedom of movement through the horse's neck and head. So the way the horse elevates the head and neck is by controlling their own body weight, keeping it in the torso, mostly through the back and hindquarters, compared to the forehand, the front legs, the neck or head, right? So without weight, consciously controlled, kind of held up and back on the back half, the front half, because of the long neck and the heavy head, keeps getting pulled forward and down. Gravity is always working. So learning to resist gravity by lifting the spine, flexing it upward, engaging the hindquarters, resisting the forces of gravity and motion from the constant pull on the front end, that's how they get weight off their front end. So as the weight comes off the front end, the neck elevates and they come into balance, front to back, right? But there's also a side-to-side component. So if they're wiggly, rocking, rolling, unstable, it's very hard to get that front to back balance. So while Rafalko is still learning to keep his hindquarters stable when we come off the little circles, right? While he's learning to balance, keep the weight balance left to right, which is still a work in progress. It comes and goes. I started taking up a rein contact, which just means touch without any restriction. And it used to be if I touched the reins even this much with this horse, he gaped his mouth, he chomped the bit, he overcurled the neck, he stuck his nose between his front legs, and he just had a stress attack. So I really only could ride him like this on a very loose rein until he started to get the hang of stabilizing the back and pelvis. As it got more stable, he relaxed the neck more, and little by little we've been able to build what I would call a real rein contact instead of the kind of fake rein contact he was used to, or what I called a really dysfunctional relationship with the use of the neck and with the reins and the bit. So restoring that has been part of the last of his process as we're moving towards trot and canter, as his balance is getting much more under his control. The aids are getting lighter. It's easier for him on different paths of travel at the walk. I'm not seeing lameness when I work him on the ground, trot and canter. All of those are the signs that, yep, it's time to start fixing that old corrupted relationship with the reins and the bit. And now, even though his neck is still curling and his neck is going up and down, in and out a lot, which is just reflecting the lack of stability he has or control over his own balance through his torso. He's not gaping the mouth, chomping the bit, and showing the usual signs of stress-related rein use that he used to have. He's gotten much quieter. He gets a little busy in the mouth now and again, but overall much quieter. And with the rein contact, it's been a lot easier to help him stabilize his spine all the way from the head to the tail, and help him feel kind of his own weight shifts front to back. I'm not resisting him falling forward, but I'm touching him as he does through the reins, right? And that contact gives not only us more information, it kind of gives the horse information. It gives them a sense of where they are in, and they can adapt and adjust based on what we're doing with our leg aids and our torso weight and maybe a little bit of rein aids left to right, but they still have to figure it out, right? So that curling, that is the old habit. Ooh, full on right there. Yeah, that is the deal. So there, I might loosen the reins completely, drop the contact. As he stabilizes, I'll start over. And that's what's difficult. Once we start restricting horses' necks or trying to lift the horse's front end through the reins and the bit, or we use a ton of leverage in their mouth, the theory is if you restrict the long neck, they have to lift the back and engage the hindquarters. But there's horse after horse after horse on this planet that just has proven that wrong, because what they can also do is drop the back, disengage the hindquarters, twist the spine or bend the spine, or even just shorten the neck to the point that they get relief from the rider's hands or the bit, but they never lift the back, or they never figure out the intention of the rein restriction. So there's a gazillion things a body can do other than the one correct thing that we're trying to guide them to do. So even with the best of intentions, our hands restricting a horse's neck is just a disastrous combination, because it most often has the effect of destabilizing the horse's spine and destabilizing the pelvis. Because like I said in the last video, the biggest difference between horses and people when it comes to balance is their neck is in front of their torso. Their balance is horizontal to gravity. Ours is vertical to gravity. But we use our arms if we lose our vertical alignment and shift weight, get stable again. But we don't allow a horse to use their head and neck like an appendage, just like us balancing and using our arms. If we don't let them do that, it's very hard for them to figure out how to control their body weight through the torso, or how to get stable through the torso to the point that they can relax the neck, right? So the neck is part of the axial skeleton, which is why it needs to stay straight, but it's also functionally like an appendage. So they can't lift their arms, their front legs off the ground. They're always on the ground. So they use the head and neck the same way we use our arms. When the weight gets a little unstable through the torso, they adjust the head and neck in order to restabilize the torso. So a rein contact, we feel all the details of that happening moment by moment, stride by stride. When we restrict the neck, we feel none of that, and it makes it almost impossible for horses to shift their weight. So it'd be like sticking a kid on a bicycle or a balance beam and saying, figure it out, but by the way, we're going to duct tape your arms to your torso. So we're going to strap your arms down, and when you do figure out balance, you'll be better at it because you can't use your arms. We just don't do that, right? So even if we slip on ice, we stick our arms out. And if horses lose their footing or they have a little trip, it's like they can't regain their balance sometimes if the head and neck are too restricted. So rein contact is a big deal. I thought I would take the time with two horses at my farm that really have not great relationships with the reins and the bit to show you how I go through the process of restoring rein contact as a very, very useful part of riding, right? I'm not a big believer in loose reins forever. I go rein contact just comes in at the right time for the rider and the horse so that it's used correctly and not overused. But no rein contact, even Western riders, it really is sort of creating, it can, how do I say this? It can become a blind spot, I guess is the best way to say it. It's very hard to get the detail of the neck use or the neck alignment to the back or the use of the shoulders without the benefit of rein contact. So even if we show on a loose rein, like in Western riding, to me the training is still going to involve a rein contact. And even if I'm showing horse in a leveraged bit, one with shanks, Western or English, I still am going to train in a snaffle because that gives me, again, more detail and less leverage. And that detail of what we can feel through the reins makes us more accurate in our guidance and helps horses balance a whole lot faster. But if they don't accept it, like he didn't and Lexi didn't, then it's a useless tool. It's taken out of the toolbox and set to the side and rusted away. So I'm knocking off the rust of that tool, rebuilding the rein contact, and you can see, even with a big horse, long neck, I still have enough rein. So there's my rein aid to make the turn because he was going to blow the turn. And even with his nose almost in the ground, I can still hold the reins right by the buckle and maintain that feel of a 3 that I've been holding this whole time. So even there, I don't have to restrict, I don't have to keep my rein length. I've got plenty of rein, even with one hand, to lightly lift the reins and keep that same feel in the reins no matter where he puts his head and neck. That's a rein contact. The only way to do it is to adjust the length. There's no other way to do it, right? So I wanted to show this with Rafalko and Lexi because I think it's an important part of horse training that is, I was taught about, 50 different ways to have a rein contact, and none of them were very helpful to really developing balance in the horse. More often than not, the ways I learned how to use the reins, handle the reins, or even have a rein contact usually got us stuck or created a big setback in the development of the horse. So this is the best way I found. It's really a feel on the reins more than anything else. So that light feel on the reins, which is a 3, can be the same feel no matter how long or short the reins are. And that way I touch the horse through my hands, through their head, through the reins, but I never restrict it, right? And even if I'm on a loose rein, I'm still using a left and right rein aid, so he's used to that, and that's not causing the restriction as much as if I don't allow the reins to slide, or if I allow the reins to go to 0 when he curls his neck and tucks behind a bit, then he's finding an escape from the contact. So if he curls his neck, lifts his head, tucks his nose back, I have to shorten the reins to maintain a 3. And as he finally lengthens the neck, even if he lowers the head all the way to the ground, I can still keep that 3 feel on both my reins. So that to me is a rein contact, and I think Rafalko's doing pretty nicely with it. Most of the time now, as we're still working on our big circles, his mouth is quiet. He gently goes to lengthen the reins rather than curling behind more often than not, although some of that old habit is still working its way out. But right there, that's just a lovely rein contact. He's gently sort of taking the reins, and I'm always ready to let them slide. If he goes from this to tucking his nose backwards, I just shorten the reins a little bit and keep the same feel. So no resistance, I'm always there, but I'm never restricting. And that is really the purpose of a rein contact. Okay, you keep going, I'm going to stop the video.